Hope you've had a good week. We're going to be talking today about Emet and Sheker in children's education. The shiur is dedicated to Rachelea Bas Rav Chaim Tzvi, as always. Should be an imbue for her neshama. And we'll begin. The issue of Emet and Sheker, arguably, is the most central issue in chinuch. It's the only issue about which the Vilna Gaon said, this is where you have to be serious. This is where you have to be strict. This is where we have to be unrelenting. This is big. So we have to begin, at least, even though this is chinuch and not hashkafa, we have to talk about why Emet is so important. The reason why Emet is so important is that we only know Hashem through the world and our responses to it, through our responses to His signature, His saying, Ani Hashem, in every situation, person, and object that we encounter. When we use words to describe what we encounter to make it more palatable to us, then we've lost Hashem's imprint. Now, taking this idea further, the way Hashem created the world is that every deed carries with it a consequence, positive or negative. When we use words to avoid consequences, then we're also changing Hashem's order of things. We're creating a fantasy world, again, where His imprint can't be found. So, Emes is hard to underestimate. Emes, by definition, is the big picture, the whole picture. We often confuse Emes with accuracy, which isn't always the same thing. Emes means how Hashem sees it. The big picture. So, of course, there are times when you could change the truth for all sorts of reasons, because the simple truth, the verbal acuity in describing something this way or that, sometimes conceals the bigger picture rather than reveals it. So you see this with what seems to be very deceitful when Yaakov said, I'm Esav Bechorecha. So even though he meant I'm me and Esav is your Bechor, it seems deceptive. It is deceptive, except that he, in essence, in everything that the Bechor was, he was the Bechor, he was the spiritual heir. So, truth is a huge value, and even the times when lying is permitted is only because sometimes the lie leads you to the truth in a higher sense. This world is called Alma de Shikra, the false world. Why? Because the Gashmi world is both our way of knowing God, but it also conceals God at the same time. So all sorts of things like cause and effect conceal Hashem. Power and everything comes forth from power seems to conceal Hashem. So we're in Alma de Shikra, and our job is to be people of Emes, to be seekers, to see the whole picture, to see the divine imprint. We have to begin this path when we're young, which is why chinuch for Emes is enormously important. So with this in mind, we'll start talking about chinuch for Emes in very young children. Very, very young children are experimenting with words. So oftentimes they imagine something and they themselves are not sure where the borders are. So you could correct them, but the correction isn't meant to make them feel bad about what they said. It's just to get them straight. So I'll give you an example. A very young child, and by very young, since remember, babies aren't born speaking, so we're talking about a child from, let's say, 2.5 to 5. A very young child comes and says, I'm Noach, and you're the animals. Come, let's go on the boat. Okay. He knows he's not Noach. If you were to, and he also knows the bathtub's not the ark, and he also knows that the shower head's not the Arubot HaShamayim. He knows it. But what he doesn't know is that by describing himself as being Noach, because he feels like Noach, but he's departed from emes, meaning his emotional emes at that moment is I'm Noach. His intellectual emes is a different story, and at this age they don't necessarily meld so easily. So you have to teach the child the vocabulary of imagination, which is, in Hebrew, ki'ilu. Yes, you're ki'ilu Noach, meaning you're like Noach. And this is ki'ilu the flood, and these are ki'ilu the animals. Wow! It's so much fun to play ki'ilu. Okay? In English, the words would be, let's pretend. Yes, let's pretend you're Noach. Let's pretend these are the animals. And okay, you understand this? You have to introduce this vocabulary.